Okay, lovely. Let's get started.
All right.
Ray?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ray. I'm one of the co-founders of Aleo. I met the other co-founders at Berkeley. Well, we all at Blockchain Berkeley. We all did consulting together, and we decided to go on this journey together also after college. Yeah, and primarily I focus on the engineering, so you may be more familiar with my GitHub username and see me more on GitHub than in calls in the public space. But yeah, I focus on protocol. I focus on services, everything related to engineering. That's my area of expertise.
Ray, before we start with questions, can you tell us what your GitHub name is?
Oh yeah, it's Ray Chu 86.
Oh. Oh, I see. Very straightforward. Does anyone want to start with questions, or should I ask from this list? Okay, I'm gonna just pull up this. Go right ahead.
Yeah, just want to ask how the stress testing going.
Yeah, stress testing has been going well. We've compiled big lists of things that we wanted to test, and we have the whole team, heads down, like running nodes, trying to break the nodes, trying to, every combinatorics of, issues that we can try to run into, we're trying to hit. So far, it's going pretty well. We're very optimistic. So yeah.
Yeah. So what are the main focus area on this stress testing session?
A lot of it has to deal with stability of the nodes and making sure that the nodes behave the way that we want to. So under specific stress conditions, under specific sequences of inactivity or high activity, or any of these types of unforeseen circumstances, we try to throw at running networks at various node types of various validator sizes. And we see how the network reacts, and we determine if this is a normal behavior or something that we should address.
I see. Did you guys find any critical bugs during the stress testing?
We found a couple of, I wouldn't say critical bugs, but it did prevent the network from advancing in the way that we wanted to. They were very small changes that we needed to make. Primarily what we were finding is stability related things. And basically the most of the effort that we're putting into is smoothing out the expected behavior of nodes and the operating capacity of these nodes.
I see. What are the reasons that make all the previous node that suddenly go out of sync sometimes? Like I think I've been encountered before one time, even in DevNet. Yeah.
I think there's a variety of factors. You can't really pinpoint a specific reason why one node comes out of sync. It also depends on if you're a client node or a validator node. So let's say in the case of the validator node that you're running, you may go out of sync because you're getting spammed by, let's say, a malicious node or spammed by requests on the REST side. So all of your resources go to processing database queries and handling requests that other people are sending, and not focused on working on consensus, which possibly slows you down and pushes you behind and slower than the other nodes. It's can't really pinpoint an exact reason why something like this would happen, but there's a variety of factors, and this is one of them.
Can you offer an example of one that's not a validator node?
Yeah, client would be something similar. You're syncing blocks, and now you're getting spammed with requests, and now you have lower CPU utilization. You can't really sync at the same speed, so you trail behind. There were specific very malicious cases where they were forging blocks, but that was in the previous testnet where you could possibly do that for older blocks. Now in the case of we're using proof of stake and we're using BFT, you can't really do that unless you're able to forge the signatures of a specific number of validators. So we're have more safety on that side.
Thank you.
Any other burning questions? Okay, so I have a series of questions that we have. A long one. Oh, Ramiro, please. Did you put up your hand just to put up your hand, or you have a question?
Yes, I did. Sorry. Hey, Ramon. Sorry not having my camera. My internet is a bit not
It's
good
okay.
today. Let's say it, put it that way. Raymond, I have a kind of like a leadership kind of question. I was really curious when you set up to build a monstrosity like Aleo that is like so big, so complex, so many things that needs to work together across like multiple span of years. How do you think about a team that needs to build these things? Do you think about different roles that needs to be fitted? Do you think about the type of people that fit better the team that you have right now and how you evolve it? How do you think about the type of engineers that you need to build things like this? And how do you go about get them and keeping them in the project? Because it's a very interesting project, but it's also very challenging. So it's quite scary to work on things like this when it's so cutting edge. So I guess the general question is, how do you go about team building and sourcing that talent into projects like Aleo and all the different sub projects that you're working on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll give a little bit of history. Basically, it was a big learning process for all of us here. We started, just a few of us, and we basically took everything on our own shoulders, and we were building things, and we quickly realized that what we were building wasn't, something that we could take on ourselves, and we needed to scale. So initially it was during COVID, so it was difficult to do hiring, especially in person. We wanted to work with people in person because we believed that at the very beginning, the specific people that we chose to work with and to grow the team with would be really important. So at the time, we just went with contractors to help us with smaller tasks. And we really focused on hiring into specific roles that we thought were more important and that we needed to push. And then some of these hires worked out, some of these hires didn't work out. And what we learned in that process was we should be hiring for the people and a culture fit, especially at this size, rather than filling specific roles, because we want people to grow into ownership and leadership roles, rather than picking a person that comes in to do one specific tasks. So I guess the moral and the crux of this is find people that you are willing to work with and will feel like it's on the same team, rather than just another coworker that's going to plug a specific department in your company. Hopefully that answers it.
Yeah, thank you. Interesting approach. Just as a follow-up question, I'm curious to know more. What's the distribution currently at Aleo? How do you think about that growing in the future? Core mathematicians, cryptographers, engineers, people closer to Web3 with more experience, and engineers that have a lot of experience in normal Web2 kind of things and they're transitioning, language developers and engineers and architects. What's in the near horizon there?
Yeah, so when we first started, a lot of this was discovering how the protocol should be built and should be architected. So we needed a lot more cryptographers and professors and PhD type of like very high level like design work. Now when we're transitioning into more services, we can hire for those roles, and that's an easier task for us, because there's on the ZK protocol side, there's only a handful of people who can really design these protocols in a safe manner. A lot of it was the co-authors of the Zexi paper that we brought on because it was their domain of expertise that really enabled us to build specific protocols in the way that we wanted to function. Nowadays, it's easier for us to find engineers that can fill roles that build infrastructure. But what we're really searching for is people who can follow the vision, no matter your skill set. And then we, backfill them into roles, or we build them into leaders that, cross different verticals.
I see. Thanks a lot for the answer.
Yep.
We have a few new Deborah ambassadors that are joining us now. Sorry, Ovia and Trevor, for the last minute invite. I forgot to include you both. But I do have notes that's included in the comment section, as well as it'll be attached to your calendar invite, and then this whole thing is going to be recorded as well. Any other questions before? Honestly, I would prefer you ask questions here versus me pulling up this question list, but we don't have any right now, I'm gonna just go backwards on this. So Ray, how do you use the view key to access private data in the browser or wallet, and whether there will be support in the future to provide a view key specifically for viewing certain transactions? Is that a question you can answer?
Yep. So view keys are used to decrypt things on chain. So for example, you use your own records to send some sort of amount of, like, let's say I send some credits to you, and you can determine if someone sent you credits using this view key by decrypting on-chain data. So the nuance is that everything on-chain that is private will be private, and you don't know which one is yours. So you have to try to decrypt each individual piece of encrypted data to determine if it's yours. So let's say I sent you something, but I didn't tell you which block it is. So you have to scan a whole bunch of blocks to determine, oh, hey, yeah, he actually did send me something, and you use the view key to do that. In the future, we would like to have services that you use this view key or have some sort of delegated like scanner service so that we can do this scanning for you, such that hopefully in a private manner, you give us a view key. We hopefully do not know this view key, but we're able to determine, hey, you actually did receive stuff like this in this transaction or this block.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So future, there may be services where there's delegated scanning.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah. So I guess related to that question would be, would there be like transaction-specific view keys? Such
Right now, we only have account-related view keys. In the transaction form, we can architect. There are ways to architect things like this, but nothing in the near future that we're planning to launch with. Maybe down the line, if we wanted to write ARCs, we can have transaction-related view keys. But at the moment, nothing in the pipelines.
Okay. Evan.
Do you mind if I just, so I do believe there are transition-specific view keys. It's just the TPK times your view key. And that's how all of the ciphertexts.
Yeah, we call these I think graph keys. It's effectively a account view key because you iterate on the counter to go through these types of these key decryptions. So it's not technically a transaction-related view key, but it is like a key in the sense that you can decrypt specific pieces if you know what these counters are.
No, it's the transition public key times your view key. And then the ciphertext view key is like a hash of the function, the index, and then the TVK for like a specific ciphertext. So it's not based on the graph key.
But you do need to know the view key in order to determine which key to derive, right?
Yeah, so I think, but once you get the TVK, I think that is safe because it's a point scalar multiplication.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, we can already build these applications in the wallet. We're trying to figure out like a safe way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, because we don't have function privacy, you can determine which transactions are related, somewhat to what you want to decrypt. So, for example, you only target transfer privacy. You can just derive that or like cut out various other subsets that transfer private, and then continue from there.
Yeah, I think record ciphertexts work similarly, but instead of like the TPK, they're times your view key. It's like the nonce times your view key.
Right. Are you referring to just standard input-output, like ciphertext?
Yeah, so standard, like the ciphertext prefix, like those are encrypted with, yeah, the TVK.
Yeah, the TBK and then the counter of wherever index it is in the transition.
Yeah, and then the function name.
Yeah.
Sorry, you guys, my internet disconnected for a sec. Okay, I wasn't able to get any of what you guys spoke about, Evan and Raymond. There was too much going on. So we may need to borrow that from the transcription. Or if either of you have the notes and you can help me elaborate on that, anybody in the call, please do. It's under questions number 1. Ramiro, please.
Yeah, this one is most about Leo and what's coming up, because I'm really waiting to await. So I'm going to ask this question again. I asked this last time to Pranab, but I wonder what's the timeline to actually include a sync await in Leo? And if you have any idea of how you're going to go about for programs that are already deployed, how to upgrade, how to migrate them. Is this something that we're thinking within the community, maybe to have like some scripts to translate and like transpile into the new versions of Leo? Like, what's your idea on how that's going to roll out, basically? Because it's a significantly different way to write things with Leo, right? From the finalize and stuff like that.
I guess I could hop in real quick. It's on the way, so we are working to get this in before we launch. And our Evan is doing a lot of work on that. As for like compatibility, the underlying Aleo instructions don't really change with this programming model. You use new features and use them in different ways. So old programs remain compatible. Old Aleo programs remain compatible. New Aleo programs will be compatible. And then old Leo programs would need to be, I guess, translated over. I don't think we plan to like release any like scripts or automated translation for that stuff. Mainly just it kind of marking them at different compiler versions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I see. Maybe just a follow-up question. Do you foresee any other big change or upgrades on Leo version, breaking changes for like, let's say 2024 at least? Or what's in the roadmap for Leo? And because Aleo, the compiler itself, like low level, seems to be quite stable with the opcodes that we have right now. But I'm curious to see if you're already thinking about expanding any of them.
Yeah, I don't think so. We don't have many. Like once we launch, we really want to reduce or just pretty much eliminate any breaking changes we have to the language. Really, what we're excited about are a bunch of like features that we've kind of like tabled to the side that I think could be like really useful, like type inference, some stuff like optimize like data type layout, like those kind of things, like very like compiler work that just really improves the development experience. So the idea, TLDR, keep the language stable and just improve how it's used.
Oh, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, I have Aleo's transactions do not have a nonce design. How does it address the issue of double spending?
Double spending, there's no exact nonce per transaction, but let's say in the record model where you want to determine if a record has been spent or not, each record has a corresponding like commitment and serial number. So once you determine that this serial number has been on chain already once, you know that this guy is trying to spend a record twice. So you can determine it just by checking on chain if the related commitments and serial numbers are unique.
Cool. And then I think we've got this answer before, but it might be nice to hear from you as well with the difference between a client, approver, and a validator.
Yeah, so the client node is just any standard node that's listening on the network and fetching blocks and keeping up to state. A validator node is the one producing blocks by participating in consensus, which is the BFT protocol we have. They sign certificates, they send them back and forth, and then they create subdags to create blocks. We're using Bullshark. And then provers are just nodes that are grinding on solutions, basically mining in a sense, that send those found solutions to either clients or validators to try to get them included in blocks.
Send them where?
To the network, to other clients, to validators.
Okay, cool. ZK?
Yeah, I have questions other than the technical side of thing, but the operations of the company. So we all know that the Aleo Network Foundation is going to own the Aleo blockchain in future and also doing all the ecosystem building and stuff. But I'm curious about how about the vision of Provable and what's the investment or what's the goal of Provable as a company? Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, Provable as a company is going to be focused on services on top of the Aleo network. So, for example, all of the infrastructure and record scanning, possibly Explorer type products, proofs as a service, where we help delegate proofs for users or maybe on mobile and can't run it, expensive proof computation, things like that. We're in a support capacity basically to build services on top of a running network.
I see. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Also a question that we've heard before, but I think you're so great at these answers. If you give a whole, yeah. So I'm going to just ask you again. What is the ZKP scheme that Aleo uses? And maybe you can elaborate on the selection.
Yeah, so we went through a whole slew of different, proof systems, and we currently use something called Varuna. So at first we started with Grot16. We determined that, hey, look, we need like a proof system that doesn't need a trusted setup for every individual program. So we moved into Marlin, and then now we moved to Varuna, which is a variant of Marlin. All that is to say, once we did a trusted setup, we have one universal SRS. Every single program can deterministically generate their own PK and VK without having to run a trusted setup. So this takes a lot of like work off of the user and the developer, and it just allows the system to come to a decision on what your proving key and verifying key is for your proofs. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. That's great. What are the limitations of, and this is my own question, what are the limitations of Varuna?
I guess there are faster and proof systems out there. There's the proof systems, like that world is always evolving. We can't really exactly switch our proof system every time a new discovery comes up.
Yeah.
So we'll always be like not suboptimal, but like not the exact cutting edge, because people come out with new protocols and they may or may not be tested, but they may or may not beat ours in some capacity or another.
How did you make a decision? Like what led to, sorry. So since you can't always be on the cutting edge, and given there will always be sort of faster, better solutions, what was the catalyst for, you sort of alluded to this earlier, but like moving from Grot16 to Marlin to Varuna?
Yeah, Marlin. So the Grot16 to Marlin was because we needed specific like attributes of the different proof system, and then the transition from Marlin to Varuna was more of an iterative process where we improved upon Marlin. That isn't to say in the future we wouldn't change our proof system. There are ways for us to and we're also thinking of ways to possibly to do upgrades in a sense where it's generic. But at the time it was we swapped to Marlin because it was what we needed, and then from there it was more of an iterative process to improve it.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you. Might also be a question for Pranav. So thank you for being on this call. Oh, Ramir, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to bother you, but you say I'm full of questions.
Yeah.
This is more about proof delegation, because the way I understand it now, it's kind of like one of the biggest pieces of the puzzles that Aleo proposed and kind of what fulfills the whole promise. And in order to do proof delegation at scale, it seems like we need to hook through. Still a few challenges are not yet completely solved. So I guess I have like a big general question of how do you see proof delegation in the next coming years, and how do you see teams trying to approach that problem from different perspectives? And how would, if you dream a little bit in the coming years, how would that solution would look like? Is it something that is going to be more like a platform to decentralize the proofs, and it's going to be like a clever queue system? Is it going to be independent teams and companies that are going to release their own like hardware to kind of facilitate that at scale and for cheap? Or how do you see that going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see it in different facets. It's not like, oh, this is exactly how things are going to play out. Proofs as a service currently is a very broad idea. Right now, we rely on needing, let's say, the compute key of your of the user to generate and fill out the authorization and create the transaction that they want us to. There are cryptographic techniques such that we don't even need to hold a compute key or any key that the user has. But that's further down the line. That's more of a design change and like a future arc if we wanted to push down that route. On the front of what the market would look like, not exactly sure. So there we played around with ideas of, let's say, a pool where people send their authorizations and it collects in a pool, and people can fight, like provers can fight for taking the whichever one they want and proving for them. Or we go down centralized routes where users trust specific delegated provers because, let's say, they trust this node, or they run their own provers, or they trust this service, and those financial models are dependent on how those individuals want to structure it.
Interesting. Do you see that hardware optimized proof generators are going to be a big thing in the next 2 or 3 years, or we need to wait more for that to actually come to the actual market?
I think 2-3 years is a very reasonable timeline. If you look at how our Coinbase puzzle is effectively the same. The reason why we have it is to do hardware accelerated proofs. It incentivizes people to generate and build hardware that makes things efficient and quick. And in the test nets, people have already developed techniques that are crazy optimization. So I 2 to 3 years, I would say, is already like quite a long timeline for people to generate and build hardware. I think even shorter term, you would see more accelerated opportunities.
One last follow-up question: is multi-party computation part of the solution for this, or is just something that the mathematics are too incompatible to make it actually runnable at a reasonable amount of time and effort?
Yeah, possibly. I think it isn't on the radar at the moment in terms of like a solution, because it's a lot of added complexity, and it only really matters if you want specific attributes of NPCs. If you look at the other papers that the authors of Zexy have written, so for example, Howard has written a paper called DIZIC, it's distributed ZK proofs, and basically he generates proofs on circuits of millions of constraints, and he does it in a decentralized manner, and it does speed things up. But it really depends on like what specific use case would it really matter for. In the case of our proofs and our deployments, we have limits to the number of constraints that we have, so it may or may not be useful. It really depends on what the landscape looks like.
Cool, exciting.
Okay, we have Cedric. Yes.
I'm just to say hi to Raymond. My name is Cedric, and I use the GitHub name is GhostEye, and we'll have many discussions. And I think it's my first time to see Raymond. Yes.
Yeah,
and,
it's great to finally see you in person. Like, I'm really grateful for the work that you've done, and we've had very meaningful conversations on GitHub for sure.
Yes, and I have a question. I noticed we have changed the bootstrap node in the SnackOS code base, so the Canary testnet has launched, right?
Yeah, so the testnet has not launched, or the mainnet has not launched. We're just doing this for internal testing. So if you see any bootstrap nodes change, that's all internal testing. The live network is still using the testnet 3 branch, and the mainnet one is just for in preparation of launch, what we're doing to get breaking changes in and do internal testing.
Okay, thank you.
Cedric, can you repeat your question? I want to write it down properly.
I noticed the Bootstrap node has changed in the Snack OS code base yesterday morning.
Okay.
I want to ensure the Canary testnet has launched or not.
I see. Okay, cool. Was it boat? I'm sorry, this is like a silly question. Was it boat job node? Or is there a specific name that someone can type?
It's the bootstrap nodes.
Bootstrap node. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. All right. All right, Ray. Maybe a question for both Pranav and you. For arrays in Leo, are there any storage limits? Is there a limitation on how programs can run? I know that off-chain should be unlimited, but what about on-chain? How do verifiable oracles work? I don't know if they're both related, but go ahead.
Seems like a couple questions there. For the first bits, arrays are currently like static in size. So right now, just off of like the hard-coded bounds, it's 32 elements, and then you can nest that 32 deep. We have like explored some ideas for like kind of unbounded arrays. So if we want to get some arcs in later, we can use these techniques called Waxman networks to kind of simulate random access memory. Those kind of come down the line. But right now, everything is kind of fixed static size arrays. I don't know what the other, I forgot what the other pieces were.
That's okay. Is there a limitation on how long programs can run?
Yeah. So off-chain, they just run for like, so in practice, off-chain, you can build your circuit as large as you'd like. And as long as you have the proving capacity to execute it, you're good to go. On-chain, there's effectively a cost model. So there's a couple limits here. There's a cost model where each opcode has an associated cost for it to be run on the network. And then there's just an upper bound. I think we bound it right now at 65,000-ish commands to be run in a single finalized block.
Thank you. And then the last part of that question. Oh, Emmanuel, go ahead.
Hi, Ray. I wanted to ask, like in the block.height, whether there's a sample code I can use to test my program, because I didn't see any sample code.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? What do you mean by block height?
The block height.
Block height.
Yeah.
Like, are you trying to query the block height from the nodes, or
No,
what is it?
I wanted to use it in my program, but I didn't know how to implement that because I didn't see any sample code.
Oh, so you're trying to get the block height in the program itself, is what you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
In the language, we do have. Pranav, do you know if we have example code? Because we're able to do this. But
yeah, I'll post. Oh, someone might help me here. Sweet, thank you guys.
Now always count on ZK. Emmanuel, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'll go through it, and then if I have any other question, I'll let you know.
Okay. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
just keep in mind that block height is only passed into the finalized scope. So if you want to do it in on the proof system and the private side, you have to do it in another way. But in finalize, you can pass it right through.
Oh, okay. And also, I wanted to also ask, can mapping be done before the finalize, or only on the finalize?
Could you say that again? Sorry.
I mean mapping. I mean, can't it be done before?
Only on the finalized side.
Okay, I mean to call maybe a data before the finalize, because most times if I'm calling a data in the finalize, I find it hard to grab the mapping.
Yeah, you can't have access to the mappings outside of the finalized scope. So if you need that data, you need to query it yourself and then pass it through.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of to add to that, really common pattern writing programs is, I guess the right word would be like a speculative transaction where you pass that data into the transition, and then in the finalized block, you just assert that it was what you expected. So block height is kind of difficult because you need, if you want like the block to be an exact one, you have to submit the transaction at the right time, and it has to be taken from the mempool at the right time. So you might choose like a range or like a less than or greater than. But in general, if you need the mapping data, generally you'll pass it into the transition, and then you can create records with it or do whatever you want. And then in the finalized block, you just assert that the data was what you expected it to be.
Nice, very thorough response from everybody. You don't know how happy that interaction made me. ZK.
Yeah. Is there a way for a program to query a public mapping of another program? Like let's say I have a program, it's a DEX, and then I want to know some token, what's its total supply?
You can. It's not the most direct. Pranav, I think you have the exact syntax for how you would do this.
Yeah, I'll post a link to an example. The short, I guess the short summary is that it's available in Snark VM, so in Aleo instructions, but that exact feature hasn't been enabled in Leo. So you may have to jump through some hoops to get it working in your program, like, editing your Aleo instructions directly. But I'll post some reference code for people to look at.
Pranav, can you just recap the exact feature, like describe the feature you're talking about?
Yeah, the desired feature is to be able to read a mapping of an external program.
Right, gotcha. Currently available in Snark VM via Aleo instructions, not yet enabled in Leo, and you're gonna share this link on the syntax.
That's right.
Awesome. Can you provide more information about Aleo's cryptography, particularly how it incorporates ZK? That seems like a big question. So any color you can offer to that?
Yeah, I guess it's just another like cryptography, like it's just another code base that pulls in a lot of like crypto from other projects and also builds internal in-house cryptography. If you look at ArcWorks, that's a lot of like the base level generic cryptography and of implementation of proof systems, and then we dive into a more specific avenue of, instead of being generic and supporting all these proof systems, we want to support one and do it well, which is why we push on the Varun implementation on our side.
Question: why did you guys select Rust as the sort of, I don't know, how would you describe it? Like, yeah, why did you select to build Leo off of Rust?
Yeah. Well, I guess if it's a Leo question, maybe Pranav would be answering. But in general, Rust is it's the preferred language of a lot of cryptographers, and it adds the benefit of safety, and also it's quick to execute in relation to other languages. It's just difficult to grasp a lot of the times for people just coming into Rust, but it does provide a lot of advantages for us down because of those features.
Okay. So it was a preferred language for cryptographers, and what were the two? You said it was like efficient.
Yeah, you could say it's very efficient. You also see that a lot of the big tech companies are also transitioning into Rust because they see the benefits of runtime efficiency and type safety and et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, okay, efficiency and safety, got it. Very on brand with Aleo. Okay, and then I have Emmanuel.
I wanted to ask whether each block height is unique.
Yeah, there's only one, like each block height should only occur once on the network. But when you're doing I guess in the context of your previous question, if you're doing a transaction with block height stuff in finalize, you only see that one block height once because your transaction will only be included in one block, if that makes sense. So let's say if your block transaction was included in block 10, it'll be block 10 when you're performing that finalize op.
Okay, because I was doing some loop and transaction, and I was able to get duplicate block height.
Could you elaborate more on what do you mean by duplicate block height? Like if you're sending multiple transactions.
Yeah, multiple transactions at the same time.
Yeah, if you're doing that, and it gets included, multiple of those transactions get included in one block, you'll see the block height multiple times into finalized scope.
Okay, that means sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, that means sometimes it can be unique, sometimes not.
It depends on when the transaction is being speculatively executed. So if you send 10 transactions at the same time, most likely a bunch of them will be in the same block, which means they'll see the same block height when it's being executed.
Okay. Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm actually not sure if this is a question for you, but we can try. So how do you keep the compliance of tokens on Aleo chain when private transactions aren't enabled?
I think you should refer to Sina and the legal team on the foundation for token-related questions.
You got it. That's right. So I will. Yeah, I have finally scammed them into agreeing to do an AMA with us. So to be determined, everybody. We'll save that question for them.
Are you saying that I was scammed into doing this too?
I wouldn't use that word for you, Ray. You gladly volunteered. Okay, I also have a couple of so before I move on, okay, yes, Rick, Ramiro, please. We love all your questions.
Open question. What was your most enjoyable challenge / solution / problem to work on since you started Aleo?
It's a good question. I think it was a big pain in the ass, but the finalized scope. Before we didn't have any notion of on-chain execution because we wanted to push the notion of the off-chain execution through the proofs, but we quickly realized, and also through the insight of a lot of our partners and Evan and the Leo team and a lot of other industry partners and ecosystem partners, that it's not sufficient just to have off-chain execution, and we do need these on-chain pieces. So we decided to build that, and it was quite an undertaking, but we're quite proud of how it turned out. Obviously, it's not perfect, but in the model of mixing both cases of on-chain and off-chain, we think it's a good mix of the two.
Cool. What made it so interesting for you? Because of the high challenge of making it on-chain, off-chain, and race conditions and a sync kind of problems. So
so just like managing state and building things from scratch, because now effectively we have to make sure that our functions have both a off-chain capacity and an on-chain capacity. So what does that language look like? What does that mean in terms of our proof system on passing through data and verifying this data is correct, and making sure everything lines up in a way that is sane and actually works. That was the challenge.
Did you take inspiration from other languages, other architectural patterns? So where did you draw inspiration from?
Yeah, we looked at a lot of other languages, and let's say the most canonical is Ethereum, where everything is on-chain. Like, what kind of features do they have and that we need? We tried to limit the scope such that we don't need all the bloat that potentially that they have that may not be relevant to us. So we looked at that. What is their key features? What is their features that may not be relevant, and how they decided to approach each design decision, and then we learn from their mistakes and we learn from their successes, and that's how we kind of arrived at finalize. Obviously, it's not to say this is a perfect solution, but it's the one that works for us.
Excellent, thank you.
Ray, what are some of the projects you're most excited about? And also, what are some of the solutions you feel that you'd like the ecosystem to support you with building or solving?
Yeah, I think I'm very excited about gaming, like just like poker and stuff, like just like fun things that you could do on networks. A lot of like crypto and programs are a little too serious, and we do need them. But what gets me excited and like giddy and reminds me of being a kid is just, gaming and like what gaming on a private chain would look like. Yeah.
And then, like, because you have like full visibility into sort of the challenges of building Aleo the network, and yeah, like what are some things that you feel the ecosystem is best, like in terms of infrastructure, anything that you feel the ecosystem could support with building or solving?
Yeah, a lot of the ecosystem like they have needs that we may not foresee. So building tooling that they would need, like as developers or as users on the network would be tremendously helpful. So we can only really speculate as to, hey, what does this developer need? We talk to other developers and we ask them, but at the end of the day, it's really them who need that product and that user interface or whatever product that they need to, build their project or, do something on Aleo. So the value for them as an ecosystem is to, really disclose and share and give feedback as to like what they want to build and why they want to build, and even building them themselves.
Mm-hmm. I know that like at the offsite, I think, I don't know if it was with you or maybe it was Mike Turner. You both look very different, but there was a conversation about resources. So a lot of things are sort of like on the back burner or sort of on the sidelines because of the lack of resources, which sounds just like, not enough team members to work on them. Are there anything that you can share with us that I've sort of like been put to the side for now, and maybe some things that the ecosystem can pick up?
Yeah, so a lot of those things are in ARCs. So if you look at the ARCs repo, you'll see a lot of proposals of changes and features that we would like to have in, but we, because of whatever reason, it's on the back burner or want to push back. One example of something that we've thought about extensively but haven't gotten around to implementing is, let's say, program upgradability. So for example, I want to, I have, let's say, a Uniswap or an exchange type of program, and I want to change up the logic because for whatever reason it's insecure or it's more efficient to do so. How would that upgrade process look like? How would we use the program owner and like the addition of the program to to perform this upgrade? How do we facilitate changes to the PK/BK because now that the circuits are different, et cetera, et cetera? Those design decisions still need to be made, and yeah, that's just one of the open areas that we haven't really dialed in yet.
Gotcha. Cool. So we just have maybe like less than 10 minutes left. Would like to give everybody the opportunity to sort of think of the last questions. Yeah, invite Ray to a game of Texas Hold'em. Yes, I have had the pleasure of playing and crushing Ray many times.
I'm really bad. I just like the game.
What are your favorite games, Ray? MOBA? I don't know if you know how to say that more.
I played a lot of like strategy games as a kid. I went through a big board game, like chess phase, a Go phase. When we first started the company, I played a lot of this game called TFT. I haven't really played recently, but yeah, just like strategy games in general. Played a lot of League of Legends in middle school and high school also. I don't know if that makes me like more embarrassed, but yeah.
So no one asked me this, but that's my answer. Ramiro.
To stay on the topic of gaming, I wonder if you've been following up this emerging idea of autonomous worlds and the idea of using blockchains as a stable infrastructure to sustain decentralized virtual realities. The way I understand that is the closest thing real to the metaverse without all the branding and corporations. What's your take on that? Do you think that's the right way to think about it? And as a follow-up, what do you think Aleo brings as an exclusive value proposition to architecting games fully on-chain? Is that the way to go? Do we need hybrids? Because the overall problem of state transitions at scale, fast and decentralized and private, it hasn't been tackled yet, like fully solved. So what's your take on all that?
Yeah, a lot of these like emerging technologies and emerging of new buzzwords, I'm a little skeptical about, but you can't know until they try these things, right? As to value prop for Aleo, we're able to bring, credential systems on a private chain that, let's say I can prove that I own this item or this identity on this, this game or this network without having to reveal that identity. And that'll be useful for, cross-chain compatibility of items and users and, account transfers and identities, et cetera, et cetera. So we do have that. On the topic of fully on-chain games, that's a little bit more difficult. We don't know exactly what games will be like successful or actually be used and have traffic. In my mind, it'll be more of a hybrid model where they use these chains for specific aspects of their game rather than having a whole game encoded on chain, if that makes sense. Like you don't want Call of Duty on chain, but you may want the items and the skins and like these things to be represented on chain so that you have, a form of, secure transfer of, these items. So it's to be seen.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Did Professor Don Song name Oasis?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, you can ask her.
The cheat code, ZK is called Clubhouse-ius. I remember it from like 2 decades ago. Clubhouse-ius. Okay, and then, I also wanted to give, maybe in the last 5 minutes, I know there are a number of us on the call who are building things on Aleo. If you'd like to take this 5 minutes to shill your project to Ray or to get maybe some feedback on what you built, we can do that too. No shame, especially now that we've fully exposed everybody's gaming portfolio or profile. Yeah, Emmanuel.
Okay, wait. I'm actually building a Monopoly game on Aleo. I don't know if you have come across it, Aleo Monopoly. So maybe perhaps I would love to see how the preview of how the game works.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to take a look.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Ray's email is on the calendar invite, so you can just send him. I would recommend maybe like a demo video or like a private YouTube link to a demo of what you built would be great.
Yeah.
Actually, on that question about gaming, oh yeah, what's the story? That's a good one. What's the story of how you met Howard?
We met in college. We were both in blockchain at Berkeley. We, I don't know, just chatted about stuff and we got to be friends, and we decided to do a smart contract auditing and consulting company in college while he was doing his master's. And I was doing my undergrad. So we did that just for fun, just because we, like the industry, we wanted to do something in there. Yeah, we just met at a club. It's a not so exciting story, but yeah.
Not your traditional club, blockchain at Berkeley club.
Blockchain at Berkeley, yeah.
I'm curious, like, I feel like whose idea was this?
So the crux and the core of the company is based off of the paper Zexy. Obviously, we've evolved a lot from there, but it was a research paper that that Howard was working on with his advisors and some of the other advisors that are also like advising scientists at this company.
But who was like, okay, let's build a network.
Yeah, so it was usually it's up to the grad student, which is at Howard at this case, to commercialize the research papers that the professors make. And he at the time was hesitant, but I don't know, we decided to take the leap of faith and try it.
And then I actually have one question regarding gaming. What's sort of like a limitation of infrastructure that needs to be solved before like a lot of the games that we're talking about can exist on the blockchain or can exist on Aleo?
Yeah, I think latency is a big one. Like when you're playing games, you don't want to wait very long, otherwise it's not fun. Like it's entertainment at the end of the day, right? And if you have to wait, let's say in the case of Bitcoin, 10 minutes for a confirmation on any move or whatever, it's kind of jarring for the user experience. So latency is a big one, just to have liveness of games and how you would display that to the user.
What's the current latency on Aleo?
I think we expect to have like 10-second block times.
What does that need to get down to for it to make sense?
It may not even need to get down. It may just be more clever ways to construct transactions and programs in turns. So for example, instead of one turn per transaction or something, you can have some sort of micro roll up, or I hate to use that term, but like just like batching type of transactions to encapsulate multiple turns or multiplayer turns or things like that, such that it feels smooth rather than, you know, waiting 10 seconds for every iteration of a move. So you can be clever with it without having to deal with, you know, the exact block times.
Gotcha. Cool. Okay, so we're pretty much at time. Thank you so much, Ray. This was a lovely bunch of coconuts. I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Good to meet you all.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.